Have you ever really thought about what it takes to um, truly understand a completely different way of life? To immerse yourself so deeply you almost see the world through their eyes.
It's a huge challenge, a massive undertaking.
Absolutely. And few people pursued it quite like Christoph von Fürer-Haimendorf. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into his extraordinary life and work. He's a huge name in anthropology, especially for his work in India and Nepal. Our mission really is to pull out the key insights from his journey, his methods, his legacy, how he helped us understand these incredibly diverse societies.
Exactly. And the sources, they don't just paint a dry academic picture. It's a story of real personal commitment,
Yeah.
a relentless drive for knowledge, facing the challenges of studying cultures on their terms, which wasn't always easy.
Right.
We want to show you why his approach was so, well, revolutionary for its time and why it still matters today.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Christoph von Fürer-Haimendorf, born in Vienna, Austria, June 22nd, 1909. And he grew up in what sounds like a very cultured atmosphere. His father was high up in the Austrian civil service governor of Sudetenland, actually.
Wow, quite a background.
Yeah, and the family history goes way back, serving the Habsburg dynasty since like 1273.
Incredible. So that's the context he came from.
And his academic journey started pretty early. By 1927, he's already studying anthropology at the University of Vienna.
In Vienna in the 1920s, that was a really influential place for anthropology. You had the Kulturkreise School, led by Wilhelm Schmidt and Professor Koppers.
Culture creases, what does that actually mean?
It translates roughly to cultural circles. It's this idea that cultures develop in layers almost, that elements like tools or social rules start somewhere and then spread out like ripples. His mentor, Shibesta, Frobenius, Heine Geldern, they were steeped in this thinking. And that really shaped how he approached studying cultures later on.
Interesting. So it's about tracing cultural connections in history.
In a way, yes, mapping those influences.
He got his DPhil in 1931, and what's striking is it was purely based on book research, focused on hill tribes in Assam and northwest Burma, but all from reading existing stuff. No field work yet.
Right, which makes his later dedication to fieldwork even more remarkable.
And here's a really interesting turning point. He got funding from the Rockefeller Foundation as a research assistant in Vienna. It came with this great opportunity study in America.
Which most people would jump at, you'd think.
Exactly. But he turned it down. Why? Because he was absolutely set on going to India.
That says a lot, doesn't it? About his passion, his priorities.
It really does. Choosing this less conventional path, focusing on where his real interests lay.
It also kind of signals that shift, prioritizing getting out there, doing the actual immersion over maybe more traditional academic routes.
That conviction led straight to his first fieldwork. His mentor, Heine Geldern, inspired him to choose the Naga Hills in northeast India. So he left London in 1936, and he spent 13 months straight in the Naga Hills. About 9 of those were living right among the Konyak Nagas in the northern areas.
And that area was only partly administered by the British back then. Pretty remote.
Very.
And this was huge. I mean, think about it. Before him, contact was mostly brief encounters with colonial officials or soldiers, people who frankly weren't that interested in the Naga culture itself. His long stay, focusing on just a few villages, that was the first time a trained anthropologist did that among a single Naga group. A real shift in how ethnography was done.
And he had help. In London, he connected with J.P. Mills, who'd taken over from J.H. Hutton. Mills became a good friend, helped him plan. They actually traveled together from Kohima into the eastern Angami area, along with their interpreter, Thavoni.
Having those connections must have been vital.
Absolutely. And his documentation methods were, well, meticulous. He took tons of photographs and kept incredibly detailed field diaries, recording everything.
That visual element is so important, something we'll come back to.
Definitely. Now, his fieldwork wasn't always straightforward. There was this dramatic event. He actually had to join what was called a punitive expedition against a village called Pangsha.
A punitive expedition, what did that involve?
Well, it was with Mills, Major Williams from the Assam Rifles, and W.J. Smith leading about 360 local laborers, or coolies as the records call them. They were heading into this unadministered tribal area near the Burma border because there had been raids. It sounds pretty intense.
Wow. So he's embedded right in the middle of this colonial action.
Yes, but ever the anthropologist, he used the journey to photograph the villages they passed through, making the most of a difficult situation.
And this relates to some fascinating, maybe even challenging cultural observations he made. He apparently returned with dried skulls from the expedition, which the Nagas received as trophies. And he documented the whole series of head-receiving dances and rituals that followed. Which raises the question, doesn't it? How does an anthropologist navigate and document practices that might seem, well, shocking to outsiders, without imposing judgment?
It's a constant balancing act in anthropology, I suppose. Observation versus participation, understanding versus judging.
Exactly. Documenting the reality as it is.
And a key thing he learned on this first trip was just how vital language is. After only 5 months, he'd learned Nagamese, the local pidgin language, and even some Konyak dialects.
5 months? That's incredibly fast.
It shows real dedication, doesn't it? He realized you can't truly understand without the language.
It moves you beyond just being an observer. It allows for real conversation, deeper connection.
Think about it. If you were trying to understand a new culture, how much more would you grasp by speaking the language versus just watching?
It's night and day, surely.
Okay, so, second research trip, 1939. He and his wife are heading back to the Naga Hills. But World War II breaks out. He has a German passport. Yeah.
Arrested. Interned as an enemy alien.
So his plans completely derailed. What happened?
Well, somehow, through various contacts and apparently with support from the Nizam of Hyderabad.
The ruler of Hyderabad State.
Right. They were released, but they were confined to Hyderabad State, couldn't leave.
An unexpected twist. But confinement. That doesn't sound ideal for fieldwork.
You'd think.
Yeah.
But actually, this led to some of his best fieldwork. He really made the most of it. They spent 9 months living with the Chenchus, a hunter-gatherer group.
Fascinating. A completely different lifestyle from the Nagas.
Totally. And then from 41 to 43, he studied the Raj Gonds of Adilabad, the Gadabas, Bondas, Redis, all while filming as well.
So this confinement actually opened up new research avenues.
Yeah.
It allowed him to do something really important in anthropology. Compare cultures. He could see the contrasts, between the Chenchu hunter-gatherers and the, as he called them, splendidly decorated Nagas.
Right.
And comparison is key. It helps reveal universal human things or unique ways people adapt. It gives you a much richer picture. After the war, his role changed again dramatically.
Yeah.
He was actually appointed advisor for tribes and backward classes to the Nizam's government in Hyderabad.
An advisor, so moving from pure research to policy.
Exactly. Specifically dealing with complex land reform issues. And this is where his anthropology had a direct, practical impact. He wanted to protect indigenous cultures and languages. So he set up education schemes, welfare programs.
Making a real difference on the ground.
Absolutely. And most significantly, he pushed the government to grant Patta's legal land titles to protect the Raj Gonds from people encroaching on their land. We're talking 30,000 tribal families getting titles for 1.6 lakh acres. That's what, about 160,000 acres? A huge area.
160,000 acres. That's incredible. No wonder they called them a Haimendorf Pattas.
Yeah, it became synonymous with him.
This is such a powerful example of applied anthropology, isn't it?
Yeah.
Taking that deep cultural understanding and using it to create policies that genuinely protect people and their land rights.
Definitely. And his educational work was vital, too. He opened primary schools using Gondi, the local language, and a teacher training institute in a place called Marlavai. It trained 95 Gondi-speaking teachers in just 5 years.
Using the native language for instruction that's so important for cultural preservation and effective learning.
And there's this touching detail. He and his wife Betty had camped in Marlavai in a hut built by the chief, Lachu Patel. Years later, the community built a statue of Christoph and Betty right there in the village.
Wow. That really shows the lasting impact they had, the respect they earned.
Imagine how getting secure land and education in your own language must have changed things for those communities. Their future prospects, their sense of security.
A fundamental shift, empowering them.
Okay, let's move on to the next major phase. Nepal. He spent a significant amount of time there, maybe 3 years or more in total, spread over different trips. In 1953, Nepal started opening up to foreigners, so after a quick trip back to southern India for more filming.
He was always filming.
He was. Then he and Betty seized the chance to go to Nepal. And importantly, they were accompanied by Dor Bahadur Bista, who was one of Nepal's very first indigenous anthropologists.
That's great collaboration. And Haimendorf himself. He became the first foreign anthropologist to really research the peoples of Nepal extensively.
A true pioneer there as well.
And he was particularly drawn to the Sherpas.
Why the Sherpas specifically?
Well, partly because they were such a stark contrast, culturally and religiously, to the groups he'd studied in tropical India. And of course, their fame linked to mountaineering Everest. It offered a chance to study adaptation to extreme environments.
So, studying the Sherpas, What kind of unique insights might that offer an anthropologist? Thinking about their adaptation, their role on Everest.
You're looking at resilience, social structures for high-altitude life, unique religious practices tied to the landscape. It's a rich area.
Let's talk about his overall output. The sheer volume is just staggering. Over 3,600 pages of ethnographic notes, detailed descriptions of a dozen tribal groups,
And the photos.
over 10,000 photographs, plus 10 major ethnographic books. The Naked Nagas, the Raj Gonds, the Sherpas of Nepal. Classics.
Not to mention general books, essays. He was incredibly prolific.
He really was.
And his approach was so multifaceted. An all-rounder, as some sources put it. Field diaries, yes, but also the photos, the films. He used every tool available.
That visual documentation is key.
Absolutely. It raises that important question about preserving cultures, doesn't it? How vital are visual records, especially for future generations?
He was really ahead of his time on that. One of the only anthropologists of that interwar generation in Britain who really got the importance of visual documentation.
And those photos, those films, they remain vital sources today. Irreplaceable.
So pulling it all together, what's his legacy? What does it all mean?
I mean, his contribution to how anthropology developed is just undeniable.
His methods, that deep immersion, careful observation, and especially that comprehensive multimodal documentation, it set a new standard.
It really did.
Think about today, our world is so visual. How important do you think that kind of visual record, his photos, films, is for truly understanding and maybe even preserving cultures now?
I think it's more important than ever. It adds a whole dimension that text alone just can't capture.
Okay, let's do a quick recap. Just hit the main pillars of Fürer-Haimendorf's journey and impact.
Right. So first, his academic start in Vienna, that culture-Crease influence, and that crucial decision to focus on India over America, really showing his commitment to fieldwork.
Then the first pioneering Naga fieldwork. Long-term immersion, learning the language, and that groundbreaking visual documentation, photos, diaries, even documenting tough rituals.
Yeah. Then the unexpected but fruitful time in Hyderabad during the war. Deep work with the Chenchus and Raj Gonds, leading to his advisor role, practical anthropology in action with the land reform, the Haimendorf Pattas, and the Gandhi schools.
Crucial practical impact.
Then his work opening up Nepal anthropologically, studying the Sherpas, adding that comparative dimension, understanding adaptation.
And finally, the huge legacy. All those books, notes, and especially the massive visual archive, setting a new standard for research and preservation.
Exactly. Prolific written work, extensive visual documentation, a comprehensive approach.
It's clear his methods, that deep dive approach, really continue to inspire people today. We hope exploring his life encourages you, the listener, to think about how anthropology can build those bridges of understanding.
And maybe a final thought to chew on. How can understanding someone like Fürer-Haimendorf, his dedicated, immersive way of studying cultures, how can that help us appreciate and protect cultural identity in our own fast-changing, interconnected world today?
Something to think about. That's all for this deep dive. We hope you found Christoph von Fürer-Haimendorf